So I was floating through the ceiling, and the next minute I was in vast blackness, and I call it the black void. And the next minute I know there was a pinprick of light on very, very far away, and it called me. It called me, and it sucked me into it, into this light with the being of light that I knew was the infinite creator. And Tia, I call the being of light the infinite creator because it was infinite, and I knew that there was nothing beyond its creation. It was so vast and so loving.
I'm so excited to have Amber Ontiveros with me today, and she had a near-death experience that she has come to share with us. Amber, thank you so much for being my guest. I'm excited to hear about your experiences.
Thank you so much for having me.
And tell me what happened. You had this near-death experience that completely changed your life. How did you nearly die?
So I think it's really important for your listeners to understand my background, because the context of my background will give the listeners an understanding of my experience. And the other thing I guess I would ask the listeners to understand that every near-death experience, that for all those that have a near-death experience, that experience is perfect for each being, and it's unique to each being. And so the experience I'm going to describe, once you understand my background, it'll really make sense. So I'm an expert in discrimination. I don't normally feel that I need to say that, but I am. I'm an expert in discrimination. I worked for the Bush administration for a year and the Obama administration for 6 years. And I rewrote several federal civil rights laws, and then I investigated agencies for discrimination all over the country. So I left the administration in 2014. And in 2016, I had my near-death experience. And so I have a rare autoimmune disease, and I had moved back here to, I'm located in Portland, Oregon, and I moved back here, and one minute I was laying in bed, and the next minute I felt funny, and I felt like this shaking within me. And the next minute I know I was floating through the ceiling. I was literally floating through the ceiling looking at myself down there. And it's very hard to describe it. It feels timeless. It feels so silent. It's magic. It feels like magical because of the silence. So I was floating through the ceiling, and the next minute I was in vast blackness, and I call it the black void. And the next minute I know there was a pinprick of light on very, very far away, and it called me. It called me, and it sucked me into it, into this light with the being of light that I knew was the infinite creator. And Tia, I call the being of light the infinite creator because it was infinite, and I knew that there was nothing beyond its creation. It was so vast and so loving. And I describe it in my book as an androgynous being. And it had light going this way and light going that way. And I knew that that was feminine energy and masculine energy, and it was going like that. And there were so many things that I was taught, or basically projections that were basically coming into me. And I didn't have a body, but the me that is me, that will always be me, was me. And it essentially transmitted information via the light into me. And there were so many different teachings. And so back to my background, the being of light helped me see, oh, no, 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 Amber, you're getting angry with the white man who is angry over Black Lives Matter. That discrimination lives within you. And as a result of these teachings and these experiences, it completely changed me, Tia. It completely changed me because I knew that the white man who's angry is me. And what he is angry over is the same thing that lives within me. And so, as a result of the experience, I studied consciousness and I studied the neuroscience of unconscious bias. And I discovered the actual parts of the brain that actually are resulting in discord and discrimination, first with myself and then with others. And all of this is about manifestation. It is about the mirror of racism. It's the mirror of discord that we're all experiencing. So I would love to explain it to all of the listeners so that they can understand why they're experiencing some of the experiences. So here's what's actually happening. So there's a part of the brain, it's called the self-serving bias. This is what the neuroscientists call it. It's called the self-serving bias. So when good things happen to you, you attribute it to yourself. When bad things happen to you, you attribute those things to everything outside of you. And it's actually an evolutionary protective mechanism to ensure that you survive and reproduce. And here's how it works. Let's say you're applying for a job and you don't get the job. It's helping to ensure that your self-esteem is protected so that you can overcome the challenge of not having the job so that you can eat. And it makes you believe it's other people's fault, but it could be that you are not looking at it correctly. So when you have an emotional reaction to a situation, what's actually happening is your soul is trying to tell you to wake up, wake up. It's actually a unconscious wounding that your traumatized brain is applying to the present moment experience. That's what's actually happening. And so the angels helped me. They had me follow and review different scientific articles so that I could understand why was this happening to me. And the other thing, back to my near-death experience, every single being's NDE is unique. And so I don't know how long I was there. It felt like a long time, but it was actually only minutes. And so my experience was really, I'm with a being of light. I feel this amazing love, and then information is pumped into me. And I was also given this like a information that was called awakening grace, and I didn't know what it was until I came back here. And so essentially what's happening is I wasn't allowed to remember what it was, and I now know why. And so if I forget to to state what awakening grace is, please remind me to say it to you. So when I came back, I studied the neuroscience of unconscious bias and all these different things. And I discovered the science behind the woundings that lived within the man who is angry over Black Lives Matter and within me. And those woundings there are four. There are, I'm not worthy. I am not enough. I have to win, and I don't have enough. And so what's happening with him is what was happening with me, which is because I had been raped when I was younger. I had been discriminated against a lot. Because I had internalized those beliefs, I then drew forth those experiences, because you attract what you believe about yourself. And why do you do that? So there's a part of the brain back here, it's called the reticular activation system. And it holds you hostage to what you believe about yourself until you change and heal the trauma. And so if you've ever driven to work and can't remember how you got there, that's the reticular activation system. It's essentially a filter that won't allow you to experience through your senses anything but what you think of yourself. So here's what's happening. The man that's getting angry, anybody that gets angry over Black Lives Matter, what's happening so quickly is that past trauma is being applied to the present moment experiencing. That's making him believe, if Black Lives Matter, I don't matter, based on his past experience that he's not worthy. And then what he's doing is he's thinking that because he thinks he's not enough compared to you, Black lives. And then he's thinking that because he believes he has to win, because in the past he didn't have resources. That is what's happening. And then when I get angry over him acting badly, essentially what's happening to me is I'm agreeing with him that I'm not worthy. And so as a result of that, the angels are like, you need to cut the ties on all of this and change how you view yourself in terms of your worthiness and believing that you are enough, so that you can cut the ties of racism and discord and discrimination, because that discord actually lives within me. So essentially what happened was I studied all these things. I created these tools for myself so that I could heal myself. And then I changed all the work that I did with my clients. So now I use a heart-based practice to create healing between the races, because while I agree discord and discrimination exists, it's not because of race. It's not because of sexism. It's not because of homophobia. And I say that being a woman, being a person of color, and being bi. It's as a result of your brain having experienced past trauma that makes you believe that you're not enough, that makes you believe that you're not worthy, that then makes you believe that I have to compete with you to win because I didn't have resources. And that's not real. In order to see that and understand it, you have to step back and see your unconscious bias or woundings that your mind is applying to that present moment experience, so that you can take back your power. Essentially, all the spiritual people that are doing the spiritual work right now are teaching people this very thing. So I teach clients now somatic practices to feel the feelings in the body. And by feeling the feelings in the body, You dissolve the energy that connects to the thought form that results in the thought loop replaying. By taking the energy from the thought, it dissolves the thought. That's one thing. Then the second thing that I do is I teach clients how to change the mindset, because the reason why you can't become who you want to become is because there's some kind of psychological barrier that's probably one of the four woundings that your brain is self-sabotaging to it. So that's what's happening. So I realize for all the listeners that my presentation is not entirely about all the mystical aspects of the NDE. And I would say, yes, I realize why that is. The infinite creator is using me, someone who is entirely woo-woo and entirely analytical, to focus on the middle, who are very analytical, who look at it in this way. And so the techniques that I teach are mindful listening, and I'll go through some of these tools. But again, why was my near-death experience more like an encounter with a being? Information is passed to me, of which I wasn't allowed to remember all of it. And then the bulk of my experience has been after that. And I know why now, because Tia, the infinite creator, gave me the impetus of the problem within me so that I could then find the solution to the problem within me, so that I could then heal it within me, so that I could then teach all beings how to solve the problem within you. And so the thing is for any of you out there that have ever experienced discrimination by a person of color, I would say this: I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know that by using the words white supremacy in my discussions around critical race theory, what I was actually doing was my brain was applying the past trauma, which is the belief that I have to compete with you beautiful white women. I believed that as a result of the white aesthetic of beauty, that I have to compete with you, Tia, because I believed the second wounding, that I am not enough. And therefore, because I believed that, I believed I was not worthy. Therefore, I believed that I have to win against you, beautiful Tia, because I believed there's not enough resources of amazing men, because there's only beautiful Tias out there. And once I healed those woundings, I knew, oh my God, no, 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 Tia. It's okay for you to be beautiful, and it's okay for my aesthetic of beauty to be with my beautiful thick nose and my big booty and my different aesthetic. It's all worthy, because we're all unique creations and sparks of God. We're a fractal of the consciousness of God, and it was meant to be that way. It was meant to be that way. And so if you, an individual that has ever experienced discrimination by someone like me, please forgive me. I have forgiven myself. In that moment, I was unconscious, and my brain was applying the past trauma onto that present moment experience. And if you have ever been angry over that experience, forgive yourself, because in that moment, you were unconscious too, and you were applying these same woundings. The brain was applying it to that present moment experience. So, in order to change, you first have to heal and recognize it. So that starts, they taught me a technique, it's called mindful listening. And I think it's important for your audience to understand how to do that. So, what you do is you focus on the breath and you breathe in and you breathe out. Focus on the breath. And what you do is, let's say you're experiencing something in the work or even a friend who's acting badly. You focus on the breath and you ask yourself two questions. One, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? So another person's acting badly. Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Second question is, what would the belief that I have to have about myself to feel the way that I'm feeling? That's the second question. And then you want to ask those same questions about the other person. So when you do this, this is what you will discover. Why is someone threatened by you, Miss Tia? Here's why. What they're really saying is, oh, Tia, there's something that lives in you that doesn't live within me, and I want to be you. They're paying you a compliment because what they're seeing is that something that's so beautiful, and they don't think it exists within them because their brain is applying the past trauma onto that experience. So they're then believing, oh my God, Tia, you're so amazing. They're thinking, I'm not enough compared to you, Tia. Therefore, they're thinking, I'm not worthy. There's something amazing about you. And then they're thinking, because I didn't have resources in the past, I have to win. It's happening so fast. And so that's when you apply those two questions, you will then have compassion for them because you're seeing what are they feeling? They're feeling fear. What are they believing about themselves? They're believing these false beliefs. Now, you want to ask these questions about yourself because of this. If they act badly and then you get angry, what you're really saying is that you believe them. And the negative feelings are your higher self or your soul trying to wake you up from the unconsciousness that you're in that moment. And so you have to focus on the breath, ask yourself these questions that then allow you to see your unconscious. Focusing on the breath allows you to step back, gain control. Asking the questions about your beliefs then helps you understand the wounding that you need to heal. That's the second part. The other thing is then you need to feel the feelings in the body. Feel the feelings. Don't call it anger. Don't call it jealousy. Just focus on the physical sensation of feeling in the body. That practice dissolves the energy that is energizing the thought form. So you do that, focus. Then what you do is you change your mindset. How do you do that? So I use a tool called Breaking the Habit of Being Small. And what we do is I require that the individual identify what is the goal they're trying to achieve. Why do they think they can't get it? And who would be the type of individual that could easily achieve it? So the reason why you're doing these two things is because you're trying to identify the feeling state or the type of person that could easily do it, and you're trying to identify the psychological barrier within your subconscious mind that is prohibiting you from doing it. And this is based on the neuroscience of top performing athletes who use visualization techniques to practice achieving a specific goal. They do it over and over and over again. Turns out the neuroscience states that the brain doesn't understand the difference between an imaginary and a real experience. So by doing this visualization technique of achieving the thing successfully for what you really want to do, it changes the reticular activation system to allow you to then see opportunities to do that very thing. It changes the mindset and it impregnates the subconscious mind that then allows you to become it. That's how it really works. So, manifestation is, if you think of it this way, manifestation is about you connecting to a time space continuum of who you are at that time, and then by doing that in that time space continuum, this person that could do that thing that you want to do, that whole set of packet of beliefs for that person would then be downloaded into you, and then you then become it. That's how it works.
I just find this work that you're doing fascinating, and it is so extremely helpful because we need to heal this wound on our planet and realize
Yes.
that we are all one, we're all equal. And we, like you said, all facets of God. We're all part of God and perfect just the way that we are. And I think you're beautiful inside and out. And I just honor this work that you're doing so much. It's so meaningful and so important.
Thank you. And I would say to all the listeners, oh, there's so much we could talk. I mean, I could talk for hours about the teachings that were downloaded into me. I mean, the being of light is like you can't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. Therefore, the number one thing, first thing that you have to do is love yourself. Because if you understand who you really are, which is you're a spark of the infinite creator, if you loathe yourself, if you bully yourself, which I did, that's what you become. That's what you attract. So you have to love yourself, every aspect of your being. And the other thing is, you have to look at mistakes as the most badass mother thing you did so that you can become the badass mother that you are. That's how you have to look at it. And you'd be like, yeah, I did that so I could be that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because again, all of that changes the reticular activation system for how you see yourself every single moment.
I think that's a really important part of this message as well, because I know personally loving myself took a very long time and it's still a work in process. It's really hard to love yourself because, especially when you have unhealed childhood trauma, you carry that from such a young age. It's just a part of you. You believe it. You've believed it your whole life.
And the loving yourself relative to the past is, so even that is, I've now come to realize is a program, because each day you are a new creation. Each day you are a new creation. And so if you forgive yourself, you don't take that into the next day. So this visualization technique that I suggest people do, they have to do it right before they go to bed every night. And so the being of light wants you to do it for 6 days. On the seventh day, you rest. And so you do it every night before you go to bed. That's when the mother of all creation, which is in you, that's when it's most permeable at night, which is your subconscious mind. And so you do it every night before you go to bed so that you don't drag into the next day something that doesn't actually exist, which is the past. If you notice, if you're talking about the future or if you're talking about the past, the only way that you can talk about it is from the present, because there's only present. There's no actual past. There's no actual future. There's only present. And but the mind makes you believe that. And that's part of the wounding too. You're not actually any of your thoughts. You're not actually any of your feelings. You're not actually your body. You're not any of those things. You are actually an angel. You're actually an angel of light. But we have been conditioned, again, a program to believe our thoughts, to believe our feelings, to believe our body is us. And that's not real. So to take back your power, to cut the ties of the program, to cut the ties of the matrix, never define yourself by anybody else but you. Never. Focus on your feelings. The feelings are gifts from God. One of the teachings that they gave me was called suffering. Suffering is grace. Grace is suffering. Suffering is the rising of a teacher. Love all experiences. There's something in that moment that your higher self is trying to tell you to wake up. Wake up. You're not seeing it correctly. And by waking up, you then can see how is the reticular activation system holding you hostage? And then you can free yourself from your mind.
So when you say cut the ties of the matrix, what are you defining the matrix as? Is that the mind?
The matrix is the mind. The matrix is the mind. And more importantly, so getting to what happened after my near-death experience. So I have essentially spent 7 years trying to understand what the hell happened to me and trying to come to terms with the fact that I had all this woo-woo, mystical, crazy things that happened to me. And I have had them been occurring for the last year, like deeply crazy stuff. The divine mystical experiences were so mystical that I was like, wow. So here's what the matrix is. Every being that you ever encounter, every being is somehow part of your divine plan, including you, Tia. So everything we plan in high level before we come here. So in some way, every experience is a gift that you're giving to yourself. So even the quote, negative ones are actually, they're all gifts. And so the matrix is, and there's only two paths, and all paths are the same path to love. There's only love. There's no actual darkness. Darkness is not, that's not real. That's a human concept. So the two paths are service to self and service to others. And what's happening right now is all beings on the earth have and always have been playing a role. And they're playing a role either service to self or service to others. And beings here, I didn't know I was a fourth dimensional being, but as a result of clearing my karma, I now know that I'm a fourth dimensional being, and I'll explain that. And so what's happening is many of us have cut the ties of contracts that we have in this game that we could consider a matrix, because this is actually a simulation. The you that is you is actually in a higher dimension. Think of yourself as a Russian doll. So there's a higher dimension of you that is actually the one that is sending down the thought forms and the feelings. It's actually coming down to you, and I can explain the science behind that, but it's actually coming down to you. And so the matrix is actually an agreement that we had with this program, and we have now cut the ties of the mind to then expand into the fifth dimension. And so the service to self beings have to be service to self in order for us to choose between service to self or service to others. You have to have the polarity in this universe to have a choosing. Because in my near death experience, the question that I asked is, why all this suffering? Why? And the most profound response was, if you're light and white, if you're white in a white room, how would you know white if you are white? The only way you can know white is to know that which is not white so that you can fully know white. White equals love. So the being of light had a harmonic. It had a harmonic to it. It had an actual vibration, and it felt like an orgasm. And I'm not joking. It felt like an orgasm. It was such a high like energy, ecstatic love, felt like an orgasm. So the only way you can know who you truly are is to know that which you're not. If you're love, you have to experience that which is not love so that you can choose love or fear. There's only two feelings. There's love or fear. And so what's happening right now is we are given the choice via the polarity to choose love or fear. And in my case, why did I go through all the study of the neuroscience, all this blah, 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 so that I could learn how to heal me. So I chose between continuously feeling fear or love, and I chose love. And then by healing that, understand the process of all beings that are watching this podcast. By you healing, you then have healing codes within your body that you then open up within other beings just by being in their presence. So that's why the being of light made me go through all this stuff so that I could heal myself and then have like this scientific kind of understanding that I can then go help other executives, other people that tend to think more in an analytical way, so that I could help them understand this woo. Because again, we're all a unique divine blueprint. This just happens to be mine. And so let's talk a little bit about the weirdness of me. So when I say that I didn't know I was a fourth dimensional being, I mean literally I'm just a normal person. Yes, I did work for, some pretty amazing people, policymakers, but I'm just a normal person. And spiritually, I'm just like everybody else. And what happened was I started, I knew I had angels around me, and they had advised me to use a certain technique, a certain affirmation to heal myself from my disease. So I started doing that. And then at one point, I saw a blue ball explode out of my stomach. And then they started shining light into my head. And in order to do that, I had the being of light took me into this room with all these other beings. And they asked me, do you take responsibility? And I said, yes. And they said, and I didn't know what that meant, but I said, yes. And they said that I was a fourth dimensional being. And I mean, all of this stuff, Tia, I recognize I am very rational, but it was I never experienced things like that. I didn't believe, yes, I knew that I knew that we reincarnate. I knew all of that because of the information that the being of light shared with me in the NDE. But after I came back, I had never had any of those experiences. I just didn't. In part because I know now that the being of light was trying to allow all those unfoldings to happen here in preparation for this expanded consciousness now, so that I could be like everybody else. And so I've since May of last year, I've seen every lifetime I've ever had. And they're deep, deep, deep shit. And I would say to every single person that's listening, you have been everything. You have been a king, you have been a queen, you've been a man, you've been a woman, you've been a murderer, you've been all of it. You have been all of it. And through God's grace, we don't remember that, nor would we want to. And you've been all of it. You've stolen, you've lied, you've cheated, and you've also been a monk. You've been all of it. And why? Because you have to experience all of that as part of your choosing so that you can remember love. So healing and cutting ties with the matrix is a choice. And regardless of the choice that you're making, know there is a perfect plan, and the plan is working itself out in its perfection.
Oh, that is deep. And one more example of why the work you're doing is so important, because we are all one. We've all been everything.
Yes.
And there's no reason to have hate for one another. No
Yes.
reason. No
Yes.
acceptable reason.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And oh, it's so profound. And I guess I would like to say to any of the listeners that struggle, that have been underrepresented, that have been marginalized, that have felt less than. I don't care if you're a white man, a woman, a gay person, a person of color. We have all felt discriminated against. I firmly believe it. And I would say there is a compassion meditation um, on my YouTube channel, and learn how to be compassionate with yourself. Because again, who are you? You're a spark of God. It all comes back to remembering. The part that's hard about the ascension, and I was just talking to my best friend about this yesterday. The part of the ascension that's hard is not the technique, not dissolving the feeling, changing your mind. That's not the part that's hard. The part that's hard is remembering in the moment when you're asleep or unconscious who you are. So in other words, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling a negative experience, you're unconscious. You're unconscious. Just okay. So then once you're unconscious, the part that's hard is to wake, to take back control so that you can then be conscious in that moment. That's the choosing. It's the choosing love in that moment. That's the hard part. That's why I teach mindful listening. I do channel with the angels and do angelic meditations with my clients. I teach these visualization techniques. Um, yeah, that's the hard part. It's not the dissolving of the feelings. It's not changing the mindset. That part is a technique that's easy. It's the constantly you have to wake up. And for me now, Tia, I know that I'm very close to merging with my I am presence, because the thoughts I have are so soft now. They're so soft. And the other thing is, um, the colors in my meditation have changed. They're so vibrant colors, just really bizarre colors. And the other thing is, I can see a huge aura around um, candle, fire. So I can tell I'm very close.
Very exciting. And I think something's happening and more people are waking up, and in part it's thanks to your experiences. I think people are bringing these experiences back with these profound messages to help usher in this new way of thinking, this new age. And you call
Yes,
it new age. I don't want to have those negative connotations that people attach to new age. I mean, a new way of life for everyone on the planet that's better.
yes, yes. And I know a number of people are getting nervous and about what's, the next 4 or 5 months in the United States. And I would say, don't fear it. Embrace it. Love it. Love all experiences. It's a game. So in the near-death experience, the infinite creator gave me a, a toolbox called Awakening Grace, and I didn't know what it was. So Awakening Grace is a specific set of tools that the angels gave me to help you awaken your grace to heal the four woundings. And there are so many tools. Like the one tool I talked a little bit about, mindful listening. Um, this other tool is this visualization technique. Shadow boxing. What is shadow boxing? What they have me do is have an individual dress up as their shadow and then make fun of themselves, their thoughts, because you're trying to detach from your thoughts. Your thoughts are not you. The thoughts, here's what's actually happening, the science behind the thought. So the higher self in the higher dimension is sending you thoughts via the binary code that exists in your DNA. So in your DNA is actually binary code, which is computer code. And when I say this is a simulation, I mean this is actually a simulation. You're in a higher dimension dreaming this experience. And so what's happening is through the field, what quantum mechanics calls the field, higher self is sending electrical impulses via the binary code in your DNA via the field. All thoughts exist in this field. All possibilities exist in this field because all possibilities are God. And so it's sending you this thought form that you had about yourself sometime in the past that you need to heal. You need to heal that because that's actually you, that you believe about yourself. Your brain is applying it. So you have to heal it in order to dissolve the thought play loop. And so the science actually shows all of this. It's just that the science, the scientists have an unconscious bias that has resulted in materialism being like a religion. That's their bias. They can't see their wounding that is resulting in their inability to see consciousness is first principle. Once they wake up, which is going to happen very soon, then everything is going to change. Everything. Ultimately, if you understand it, we're all one. We're all one. So the angels are you. They're just a higher version of you. The higher self is a 12th dimensional being of you. It is you that is reaching back to help itself. And when I say there's only one path and all paths are paths of love, what I mean is this: service to others is really service to self because there's only one consciousness. That's it. So when you judge the darkness, you're judging yourself because there's only one consciousness, of which you are a fractal of the overall fractal of the one consciousness. That's it.
This has been really amazing. I've learned so much from you today, Amber. And I want to know if my audience wanted to reach out to you, would it be okay with you?
Yes, please go to my website, Heal the Four Woundings, and I spelled that all out. HEALTHE four, the word four, woundings with an S.com. And, I would love the opportunity to work with anyone, especially if you need structure. I needed structure, even though I'm totally woo. And so if anybody wants to work with me, I would love the opportunity. I also do keynote speaking, and I would love to bring healing between the races. Oh, I would like to end with one thing, Tia. Here is here is what the infinite creator said, that is the approach that will end all discord. In Africa, there is a tribe, and this is what they do. They believe that wherever matter occurs, spirit may be found. And what they do is when someone does something unbecoming of the tribe, they put that person in the middle of the tribe and they recount every good deed, every act of loving kindness that that person has ever done. And what they say is they remind that person back to the better part of themselves. And for any of you listening, think of it this way. If you have ever done something wrong, think to yourself, imagine what your life would be like if you heard, thank you. Thank you for making that mistake. Now we have an opportunity to fix it. And know you are worthy. You are lovable. You are kind. You are enough. You have enough. You don't have to win because you already are a winner. You are a spark of God. That's what will end it.
Imagine if we did that in our society today,
Exactly.
how much different it would be if we encouraged each other and built them up.
Exactly.
What a beautiful thought. Thank you. Thank you so much, Amber. This has been really a blessing to me. I appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.